Welcome, foolish mortals, to the FGS Horror Club. I'm your host, your ghost host, and I'm here to shine a light on the best in horror, and maybe your new favorite ride?
That's right, today, to celebrate the Haunted Mansion movie, not sponsored, coming out in the UK, I'm going to be going over the times the Haunted Mansion has appeared or starred in games. I'm a huge fan of all things studio theme parks, and the Haunted Mansion is one of my favorite rides of all time. So let's get into the boundless realm of the supernatural, with our arms and legs inside the vehicle. From the smallest of appearances to the biggest of games. I'm recording this on the Wednesday before, and I can't wait to be disappointed. First up is mobile games. And to start with, we'll look at the Haunted Mansion characters in Disney's Crossy Road. There is absolutely nothing to say here. You're playing Crossy Road as Haunted Mansion characters. There are a whopping 22 Haunted Mansion characters you can unlock in the game, so that's worth mentioning. And speaking of mobile games, the Haunted Mansion is of course also available in the two major Disney Parks themed mobile apps. Disney's Magic Kingdoms contains a collection of characters and a little Haunted Mansion you can put into your park and look at. Play Disney Parks too. Disney's answer to people getting bored in queues lets you play mini-games and trivia games when your GPS location says you're at the ride. It doesn't have any of these mini-games for Haunted Mansion, but there's a cool achievement pin you can get that no one will ever see. But anyway, enough mobile games. Next up, web games. Haunted Mansion made an appearance on the net in games like Black Widow Bride, the name of one of the brides in one of the versions of the ride. It is weird that every Haunted Mansion has a different serial killer bride, but I guess it is what it is. You need to point and click your way around to release the 999 happy haunts back out into the mansion for a swinging wake. This game was actually available all the way up until Flash Player was discontinued in 2021. Another web site, I'd call it a game, was one of a range of interactive websites Disney made for their rides for the anniversaries for just a few years, and then they never made them available ever again. My personal favorite was the 15th anniversary of Disneyland Paris Tower of Terror website that there's no footage of, and it's very hard to see that it ever existed. Haunted Holidays, however, had you clicking around, finding your way around the mansion, and discovering lore and exposition and ads for Disney Parks hotel packages strewn around the dilapidated estate. And we finally reached the big boys, the actual console games, the reason you're here. And there's a trio of Disney Parks themed games that feature the mansion, so let's go from lame to dream and shine brighter, starting with Connect Disneyland Adventures. No one likes this game. I don't want to talk about this game, but it does have to be mentioned for science. You start by falling down the stretching room like it's the start of Shadow the Hedgehog, and then you keep falling. Yeah, the whole first section is this horrible mini-game where you have to somehow control the character falling endlessly through set pieces based on moments from the ride. The second section plays out more like an on-rails Luigi's Mansion meets Alan Wake. You go through the entire mansion shining your torch at things until they give you money. If only real life worked like that too. It's to my great dismay that I bring you the news that this game is still available, and it's really available. You can play it right now on PC and Xbox if you have Game Pass. You don't even need to Kinect anymore, but do you really want to do that to yourself?
There's a little matter I forgot to mention. Beware of hitchhiking ghosts. They have selected you to fill our quota, and they'll haunt you until you return.
Next up is the Haunted Mansion level in Mickey no Tokyo Disneyland Daibuken. This game released to celebrate the opening of, you guessed it, Tokyo Disneyland. It features levels based on some of the most iconic original Disney rides. This game, it's not awful, you know. I'd hesitate to call it great, or even good, but it's a fun little action platformer. The moments and environments taken from the ride are recognizable, but they focused on making the game at least a little fun over pandering. This was a Japan-only NES game, but has an English translation you can find online. Oh, but speaking of pandering, maybe my favorite game in this whole video, and one of my most played games on my PS1 at home, is the surprisingly solid and terribly named Walt Disney World Quest Magical Racing Tour. Much like the previous game, this features adaptations of some of the most popular rides from across the 4 parks of Walt Disney World. The one we're interested in, though, is the Haunted Mansion. Before you start the level, one of the characters you can pick to play as in the game is actually based on a Haunted Mansion, and is also a duck for some reason. Anyway, this is a really fun adaptation of the ride's layout into a racetrack. I mean, a karting game based on a theme park only makes sense when you consider that rides and roller coasters already have some pretty crazy track layouts and set pieces. This level perfectly captures the feel of the mansion, and is also just a fun track to ride around in. One of the best in the game. Ask any of the 3 people who's played it. One note is that you'd really better like the song Grim Grinning Ghosts from the graveyard portion of the ride, because it plays on a continuous loop the entire time you're on this track. And as a reprieve from Disneyland-based games, Epic Mickey is a game that essentially takes place in a bizarro world version of the Disney parks. So, not that much of a reprieve. For instance, Bog Easy is a ghost-themed version of the New Orleans Square at Disneyland, and just like at Disneyland, right at the back is the Lonesome Manor, the alternate version of Haunted Mansion. This is a really cool adaptation because it mixes the 3 very differing aesthetics of 3 different versions of the Haunted Mansion: the Californian original, the Walt Disney World Mansion, and the Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris. There's several rooms here taken directly from the ride, like the stretching room, ballroom, and attic, and an alternate version of Madame Leota, Madame Leona, that you can meet in the manor. Epic Mickey was a Wii game, but it's ripe for a Switch port, and I'd love to see it. And now let's talk about the biggest boy of all. The PS2 and GameCube got The Haunted Mansion. Nowadays, it'd be easy to assume that this is a tie-in game for the 2003 Eddie Murphy movie, but despite coming out in the same year as that movie, this is completely unrelated and doesn't even make a reference or share a plot with that movie, which is a decision. Anyway, if Connect Haunted Mansion reminded you of Luigi's Mansion, this will make you think, wow, should this game have gone into legal trouble? You go through various levels, collecting souls to progress further, and get more wacky set pieces and ghosts to beat. There's not really much else to say. It's a good representation of the ride's aesthetic and feel, but almost entirely is designed for itself. It rarely uses set pieces or characters from the ride, and stands on its own, with fans of the ride able to find little Easter eggs as they go. One interesting note is that 2003 was early enough for the game to have gotten a Game Boy Advance version, or at least it would have. This cancelled full 3D prototype that leaked a few years ago, like a decade ago now, was meant to come out in 2003 alongside the movie and the other game. And guess what? It's also completely unrelated. Different story, different aesthetic to the mansion, different everything. It would have been a roughly 3D game that has you playing as a woman searching for her lost friends in the mansion. The prototype demo that's out in the world now is not very fully featured, and it's not even completely clear what the game would have been and what the mechanics were meant to have been, but it's an interesting oddity to look at and think about. And that is our lot, except for one honorable mention. In 2016, 999 people could sign up through a ghost relations department for Ghost Post, where they'd receive 3 mysterious packages over the course of 3 months, supposedly containing mysterious items from the mansion itself. Players would use the Phantom Radio app to interact with the objects and uncover clues that would unlock more of the story. You can look up more about this limited time event, but it's honestly one of the more underrated parks-themed events that's happened in recent years. I really don't know why more parks people don't talk about it. If you made it this far through my rant about one of my favorite rides, where I not once past the intro have mentioned the upcoming movie that I'm riding on the coattails of for this video's release,
It's going to be a game changer.
Highway robbery!
then you may have noticed a disquieting metamorphosis. Or is it your imagination? Consider this dismaying observation. This series has a whole playlist and many entries.
which offers you this chilling challenge to like and subscribe.
You're part of the club now, and you can come back Tuesdays for more horror game spotlights like this one every single week, only on FGS.
Of course, there's always my way.
I was going to do a bit. I really was, where I, like the start of the Haunted Mansion ride, and I say, of course, there's always my way, but this isn't. I'm stood on a little stool. This isn't happening. Cut the video.